So let me tell y'all about a time a few days ago when I just jumped right into a YouTube rabbit hole. Like those are so hard to avoid. And I just totally gave away my peace without even realizing it. So, a few nights ago, I was getting ready for bed. It was pretty late. It was maybe about 10 o'clock. So, I had work the next morning. Didn't really have a whole lot of time to spend, but at the end of the day, sometimes just to unwind, especially if it's been a long day of talking to people and just engaging at work, I like to unwind by just watching a few videos on YouTube to mess around. So, that's what I was doing this particular night. I was actually watching a video from a Christian YouTuber that I really enjoy. I follow his page, his channel pretty closely, and so I usually like his content. And after I finished that video, I thought, okay, well, it's definitely time to go to bed now, so I should probably start focusing on getting ready for tomorrow. But then, randomly, I was just thinking about a Christian artist that I like. I mean, just random thoughts just pop in, and just that one happened to be about a Christian artist I like, and I was like, well, I know this guy's pretty popular, and I haven't really heard anyone ever criticize him before. Because, on YouTube, you'll find all types of videos from both sides, even for people that seem like they've got it all together and they have a good platform. There's always people out there to criticize them, but I hadn't seen anything in particular for this Christian artist I was thinking of. So, naturally, I thought, I wonder what people have to say who don't like this guy. So I typed his name into YouTube just to see what would come up. And I scrolled for a little bit and found a video that caught my attention. The thumbnail was this kind of split screen deal. So on one side was a clip from, or a screenshot of a clip from a sermon that this artist had preached. And I recognized the clip because I had watched that sermon. So I already knew what it was about. I loved it. I thought it was powerful. On the other side of the little split was the YouTuber's face. So he had this kind of disapproving facial expression on there, like he was disgusted by what was in this message. And so I thought, what am I going to find? And so I clicked on the video just to see what was what. Got through maybe 2 minutes of it and thought, okay, this guy is way off the mark. He is already misinterpreting the sermon. He is reaching for stuff to say about this artist to prove that he's not genuine. And so I could have just ended it right there, clicked out of the video, kept going with the rest of my day and just gone to sleep. But I just had to keep going into the comments section, so let the doom scrolling commence. And not surprisingly, most of his commenters were on his side. They were agreeing with the YouTuber and just saying, yeah, I can't stand this guy. I've never been a fan of him. And, he used to be on my playlist, but then I removed him after I heard this. And so I was just shocked by what I was reading. Like, wow, I really enjoyed this message personally. So I was just, floored that so many people had something to say about it. And, I read those for a while. Then I clicked on the YouTuber's channel just to see what other videos he had. And turns out his entire ministry is, and I use that term loosely, but his entire ministry is dedicated to exposing who he thinks are false teachers and the people that seem to be leading the body of Christ astray. So I was like, okay, well, I guess this is his whole platform. So I just finally turned it off and went to sleep. Well, next morning I woke up 5:15 to get ready for work. And about 5 to 10 minutes into my morning routine, I was just thinking about all the comments that I read the night before and having these mental debates with the people that commented about, well, that's why you're wrong and that's why you shouldn't have said this. And so I was just going through my head of what I would have said if I had chosen to engage any of those people. So terrible way to start the day. I was well aware of that. But that was just how I got up and started my morning. And I just thought, what is going on? Like, why was this the first thing that I thought about? And so what the heck just happened here? Well, that was a very recent example of me giving away my peace. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that in just a moment here. But something I want to communicate right now is peace, as talked about in this podcast, means an inner stillness, a knowing, a confidence that God has equipped us for every challenge we're going to face and that He is in control of every situation. So even when we don't feel equipped, we don't feel like we have what it takes to live the life, to walk out the purpose that He has called us to walk. That's it doesn't matter how we feel. The truth is that he has put inside each of us what we need to do what he's called us to do. So I've heard it said that there are two different types of peace that the Christian experiences. Number one is the peace with God. So this is the peace we experience when we first invite Jesus into our hearts. We first say yes to him and surrender to him as Lord and Savior of our lives. So in Romans 5 verse 10, Paul talks about how we were once enemies with God, but that Christ died for us while we were yet sinners. And so if we choose to accept what Christ did and choose to believe in it, then we are no longer enemies with God. His wrath is no longer turned towards us, but instead he views us the way that he views his son Jesus. He views us as blameless, as pure, as cleansed by the blood of Christ. So this is the peace with God. The second one is the peace of God, which is what this podcast centers around. And so this comes from John chapter 14, verse 27, where Jesus is speaking and he says, my peace I give you. He's saying, my peace I leave with you, because in essence, he was just talking to his disciples about how, times were about to get tough. The challenges and the struggles of this world were going to be, those were inevitable, but Jesus was saying that he was going to leave his peace with us so that we would have the power to overcome those challenges. And so Jesus promised to give us his peace, so it's ours if we enter into relationship with him. But we have the responsibility to guard that peace or to protect it. God is not going to do that for us. So what I mean by this is, protecting our peace entails being selective on the things or the people that we entertain, especially when there's a temptation for us to give away that peace. So in the example with YouTube that I was just talking about, I was tempted to get angry. I saw those comments that I just vehemently disagreed with. And, the more I kept scrolling, the more upset I got, because I just was so determined I just hated the fact that people just had these opinions. And I was like, no, you've got it all wrong. And it was 10 o'clock at night. This was late. I was supposed to be asleep. And just a little while before I even started scrolling through YouTube, I was watching the videos that I wanted to watch, just without a care in the world. I wasn't thinking about people, I wasn't getting angry at people that I didn't know for having different opinions than I did. And so when I say giving away our peace, what I did that night, so giving away peace entails losing control of our emotions, allowing something or someone to live in our heads rent-free, or shifting our focus to what's wrong rather than the fact that God is in control. So in this instance, I, allowed myself to lose control of my emotions. Now, I didn't engage with anybody in the comment section, but I was just letting my emotions run away with, what I was scrolling through and what I was reading. So just that's what happens when we give away our peace. And so we love hearing about, in Isaiah 26 verse 3, it's written that, God will keep in perfect peace those whose minds are stayed on him. So the condition with that is that we have to keep our minds stayed on God to experience that perfect peace. And as I like to just reiterate over and over again, I believe that peace is power. So we need peace to guide us through our lives down here, because I believe that's one of the key ways that we're going to survive. That's how we're going to make it in this life. Peace is what allows us to keep pushing when things get tough. So every time we see someone that's volunteering or being generous with their time or money, even in spite of what's happening in their lives, how are they showing up at church serving when they just lost their house? How are they praising God when they just lost their job, that just got fired, or their relative just died? Why are they over here praying for other people? They're the ones that need prayer. Those are all examples of God's peace at work. And so that's why I'm such a strong believer that our peace is power. The peace of Christ is what enables us to push through this life and to thrive, not just to get by. And so YouTube and social media is just one example of many where we can just be tempted to give away that peace that Christ gives us. So how about when we are tempted to look up different symptoms of a diagnosis or a disease and let our minds just run away with worst case scenarios? So I'll give you all a personal one for this. My dad is currently in a nursing home My parents are divorced, so my biological dad, he's been in a nursing home for the past couple of years. He was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes several years ago. I must have been like maybe 12 years old. And he's, in the early stages, it was an easy, or I guess a simple fix. The doctors would tell him over and over again, all you need to do is just change your diet, be active. You don't even have to do anything crazy. Just be active, go on walks, spend some time outside, just things like that. And in the early days, it really wasn't too big of a challenge. That those were pretty simple requests for him to, to beat that type 2 diabetes. But over the years, my dad was stubborn and he just didn't want to really do anything to address the problem. He might have even been in denial that it was as serious as the doctor said. And so fast forward to today, he's been in this nursing home for a while with different complications from type 2 diabetes. So it graduated from just being a matter of diet and exercise to now he's physically incapable of living on his own, at least for the time being. And dealing with this health struggle, I guess vicariously through my dad, I have just gone back and forth between just having this great faith that he's going to pull through it, that this is not the end, that God is going to see him healed and delivered from this. So I've gone back and forth from that to just, looking up different, I guess going on Google and looking at, similar situations from other people who have let the diabetes get out of control. And my mind has gone to the worst case scenario of what if he doesn't get better? What if he dies there? What if I don't get a chance to see him before he dies? And, what if he just doesn't pull through this? And so I have gone through all types of scenarios and just let my mind just go crazy with what could be the worst outcome. And so, so that stuff like that, just looking up stats, like 1 in 5 people who have these symptoms will, die before age 60. Like just looking at things like that, just letting your mind meditate on those things. That is one very quick way to give away your peace. Because remember, peace is that inner knowing, that inner confidence that God is in control of the situation. So if we allow ourselves to entertain the idea that, if we allow ourselves to be consumed by, news and by statistics and by what other people say, then you can see how it would be just a matter of time before our peace, before we would have given it away and left ourselves vulnerable to the things of this world. Another example of an opportunity for us to give away our peace is, what if we just jump into a debate with somebody who clearly doesn't want their mind changed? They're just feeling argumentative. So a good example of this is political debates. I pick on politics because those are, it's such a touchy subject for a lot of people. It's a lot of emotions get stirred up with politics. But this could apply to any debate. How about arguing denominational differences between Christians? So just any type of argument really just is it's so easy for us to jump into those and just think that we're trying to do the right thing, but really we're losing our peace in the process. We're giving it away. And another one, comparing ourselves to other people. So I did a whole episode on comparison in season 1. It's called Comparison, the Real Peace Killer. So if you haven't watched this or listened to it before, then I encourage you to go back and check it out. But it's always said that comparison is the thief of joy. Well, what about the thief of peace? Comparing yourself is a real quick way to spiral down into, a state of anxiety, even depression, when you're just looking at what other people have, where they're going versus where you are and where you want to be. So all of these things, what they have in common is that they're all choices. We have the choice to control what we consume and what we choose to believe and what we choose to dwell on. And this is why I emphasize that we can give away our peace, because it has to be a conscious decision. So even if that's not what we think we're doing, that's what's happening. I called myself on YouTube the other night just trying to explore what maybe other people's opinions of one of my favorite artists was. But really, I was just jumping right into a situation where I knew I wasn't going to like what I found, and I just forged ahead anyway, to the point where it consumed my thoughts upon, when I woke up the next morning, as early as that was. And so I believe that God wants us to develop the discipline to protect our peace, because that's the only way we're going to survive down here. as I mentioned before. There's just too much going on for us to walk out every day with our guard down and, with no defense. There's always a reason out there to be angry, to be offended, to be anxious, to be nervous about something. But if we make the conscious decision that, hey, I'm going to protect my peace, I'm going to avoid getting entangled in stuff that I know is a distraction, that I know is going to make me upset, that I know is going to, that I'm going to think about for the rest of the day. I'm going to do what I can to guard against those things so that I can go through the day with a clear head, with the peace of Christ, and fulfill my mission on this earth. And so I believe if we really take the time to be conscious of what we're entertaining, then we can experience what it means to protect our peace, and we'll feel the difference between that and leaving ourselves open to everything else that could come our way that could try to distract us and keep us from fulfilling our purpose on this earth. So just to kind of wrap things up, y'all, if you're a believer, Jesus has already promised to give you his peace. So we can walk confidently and securely in that promise. But protecting that peace falls to us. God is not going to move all of the discomfort and challenging situations out of our way. So it falls to us to decide how we're going to approach those things. There's always an opportunity to get involved in an argument. There's always the opportunity to focus our thoughts on worst case scenarios. But to protect our peace means that we have to consciously resist that and consciously choose to redirect our thoughts and our minds to what God promises and to the fact that he's in control in our lives. So thank you guys. If you enjoyed this episode, please go ahead and share it with your family and friends. Anyone in your circle, leave a 5-star rating and a positive review. Helps boost and promote this podcast so other people can see it. And as always, just send me any podcast episode suggestions. I welcome feedback and constructive criticism. And I'm just having a blast doing this. I also want to tell you guys that we have reached over 500 downloads at this point. So this podcast, over 500 downloads. That's a huge deal, a big milestone. So I'm very excited, and it's all thanks to you guys for sharing it and for keeping up with me on this journey. But I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week and the rest of the following week, and I will see you next time. Peace.